Penacony has been filled to the brim with colorful and interesting new characters, but somehow they managed to make each of them super suspicious. One of those characters is Acheron, who turns out to be the very first new character we actually run into, albeit in a dream. While Acheron appears initially as a good person, as the story unfolds, this becomes more and more questionable. Everything about her screams dangerous, and she gives off this vibe of being a predator lying in wait for her prey. As the story progresses, you find out she isn't who she claims to be. So if she really has been lying to us, what is Acheron's true identity, and where do her allegiances truly lie? Before we expose the truth, if you want to see more Honkai Star Rail content, do consider subscribing to the channel. It goes without saying that this video will have massive spoilers, so if you haven't completed the Trailblazer quest, I'd suggest you experience that first and come back to this video later. Also, in the trailer, when we first see her, she pronounces her name as Acheron, but in the 2.0 storyline, everyone, even herself, says Acheron. So I'm gonna be following that second pronunciation instead. We first meet Acheron even before reaching Penacony in a really trippy dream sequence as the Astral Express travels through the cosmos on its way to Penacony. In the dream sequence, she explains that both she and the main character have been brought to the barrier between dreams and reality and proceeds to act as a guide for the main character as she offers to show them the way out. Before we are allowed to leave though, she asks us a series of cryptic questions. She asks the main character whether if they were to know what the outcome of a particular scenario might be, would they still continue down the same path? She also comments on the fact that we seem to be familiar to her and that we reminded her of a friend she once knew. During this interchange of dialogue, some of her texts appear in red, such as when she asks questions, but it's unclear what they symbolize at the moment. After answering her questions, she seemingly attacks us and ultimately wakes the main character from their slumber, returning them back to the Astral Express. It's my belief that this whole conversation takes place in the future, much like the events the main character saw after Nanook cast its gaze upon them. The next time we see her is when she saves us from Acheron. She doesn't really remember who we are and claims to have found our room through mere coincidence and felt a threatening aura coming from Acheron and thought to intervene. She appears a third time while the main character makes their way through the hidden dreamscape in search of the truth about Penacony. Again, her appearance here is rather odd, given it's not explained how she made her way here in the first place, and while she offers to accompany us yet again, there really isn't a choice that declines her offer. Whether you want to or not, she will be accompanying you and Black Swan. In any case, as you progress through the dreamscape, you will again happen upon the mimetic death entity. Surprisingly, despite Firefly being threatened by the death meme, Acheron hesitates and stays her blade and does not intervene, leading to Firefly's supposed death. After this scene, she seems to regret her hesitation, though doesn't explain why she didn't act. Eventually, we run into Sam, the Stellaron hunter, and this time around, Acheron goes full beast mode and immediately attacks him. While the pair is distracted, Black Swan out of nowhere teleports us somewhere else where we meet Acheron. Now, all things considered, everything surrounding Acheron has been weird, but not outright suspicious. To me at least, they've just seemed to be reactions born from the circumstances the characters were in. She seems to be hesitant to save Firefly, but it does seem at the time she had some PTSD or something. She does appear in rather odd locations when we least expect her, almost like she's following us, but her demeanor and conveniently bad memory seem to brush off any suspicion. It is when we meet Acheron that the main character truly realizes how suspicious Acheron really is. According to Acheron, Acheron isn't even a Galaxy Ranger as she claims to be and is revealed to be an emanator. He doesn't reveal specifically which eon she serves, but mentions three possibilities: the eon of the hunt, destruction, and finality, though he claims it doesn't really matter either way since each of them leads to the same outcome anyway. It's also revealed that she wasn't even invited to Penacony and had stolen the invitation from the Everflame mansion, seemingly wiping out their leader, Duke Inferno, in the process. Now, it's up to you if you want to trust Acheron here, as he doesn't seem like the most trustworthy person at the moment, and maybe he's just sowing discord for his own benefit. Black Swan herself claims he likely isn't lying given his personality, but she's not entirely trustworthy either, given she just conspired with Acheron. So just keep in mind that what he says may turn out to be an outright lie, but given we're told to trust him as a reliable source, let's take it at face value and see if Acheron fits in with the 3 eons that he mentions. While Acheron claims to be a Galaxy Ranger, Acheron and Black Swan claims that this might not be entirely true. Despite that, if Acheron really was an emanator of the Hunt, being a Galaxy Ranger would actually be a pretty good fit, given the Rangers actually follow Lan as their mission, the eradication of evil, aligns with the path of the Hunt. She even took down Duke Inferno, who is a pretty bad person overall, though that's likely to just get her hands on his invitation. There is another possibility that could explain her being a follower of the Hunt. Acheron is quite clearly an XP for Raiden Shogun from Genshin Impact and Raiden Mei from Honkai Impact. They even share some of the same voice actors. I didn't really play Honkai Impact, but in Genshin, Raiden Shogun had a twin, Makoto, who died before the start of the main story. Perhaps Acheron has a similar backstory. Maybe she has a twin sister who was killed and now she is seeking justice or vengeance, which would be in line with the path of the Hunt. Though, given we know little else about her, there doesn't seem to be any other strong indication that she is related to the Hunt. Plus, the Xianzhou Alliance keeps a list of allies and enemies, and if she really was aligned with Lan, she would have likely appeared on the allies list, as the Galaxy Rangers and their leader, La Mancha, does. The second possibility is that she is an emanator of destruction. I personally feel that this is less likely, but still possible. Most Lord Ravagers tend to be straightforward in nature. If there's something they wish to destroy, they just do it. It doesn't seem to align with her personality so far. That said, given we haven't seen her true self just yet, perhaps she does possess such proclivities and is just holding herself back to not arouse suspicions. I mean, she swiftly killed off Duke Inferno without much care to get what she wants, so the possibility still exists. It might also fit the whole theme where whenever a Stellaron appears or is released, the factions that follow destruction are often not far behind, so perhaps Acheron is the precursor to destruction's appearance in this story. However, we just had a destruction path villain in the Xianzhou Luofu, so I don't really think they will be repeating that pattern so soon. On top of that, while I personally think the Stellaron in Penacony is still in play, that has yet to be proven. Finally, Acheron mentions the finality, and this is the one that I feel is the most interesting. The path of finality and its Eon Terminus is one of the least understood in the universe of Honkai Star Rail. The story goes that Terminus actually exists at the end of time, and it travels backwards in time to ensure everything goes according to plan so that the universe achieves the same end that he exists in. There has only ever been one person rumored to be an emanator of Terminus, Elio, the leader of the Stellaron Hunters. While it hasn't been proven, Elio is said to have the ability to see all possible future outcomes, and given Terminus resides at the end of time, there may be some stock to this idea. If this was the case and Acheron really turns out to be an emanator of Terminus, she automatically becomes the very first person confirmed to be related to finality. However, as we know so little about Terminus, there really isn't a litmus test to determine if she is one of their followers. There are a few things that we've seen with Acheron that might make this idea plausible, but it's not definitive. First of all is her memory. Terminus's true body is said to exist at the end of time, and as it moves further back in time, the less it kinda exists. If you were an emanator of finality, perhaps this condition applies to you as well. The further from whatever final point Acheron exists in, the more unreliable her memory becomes. As she moves further into the future, the more lucid she gets. This is why I have the suspicion that the opening scene happened in the future, given a lot of the conversation revolved around whether the main character would tread the same path if they knew how it would unfold. The timey-wimey stuff at play in that scene is why I think Acheron might be related to the finality in some way. The red text we see might be tied to this as well, perhaps whenever she taps into the powers of finality and views the branching paths or something. Also, despite knowing that Acheron is hiding something, Black Swan is unable to figure out what exactly she's hiding. I would imagine for a memo keeper, going into one's memories and retrieving info or even changing it isn't tough at all. I mean, she's done this several times in the story, even to Sparkle and Sampo. But for her to be unable to determine what Acheron is hiding, perhaps Acheron doesn't have any memory to begin with and does nothing to extract. This might be unique to the finality path followers, though I'll admit, even I'm feeling like I'm grasping at straws for this particular point. Finality is an interesting route the story could take, but it's difficult to prove as we have no other characters we can compare to. Even Elio isn't confirmed to be a follower at this point, let alone an emanator. Now again, I'll remind you that Aventurine may be lying here, and maybe Acheron isn't even associated with any of these groups. She might be an alternative standalone character with no affiliations whatsoever, and Aventurine is just manipulating us. There's also the possibility that she might follow any of the other dozen eons that exist, or maybe even the family itself. Other possibilities could be Nihility given the imagery that she's appeared next to in promotional material like the Black Hole, or maybe even the Remembrance. Black Swan has mentioned that there is another memo keeper on Penacony, and all the memory loss Acheron is experiencing might be related to the Remembrance. At this point, I'm even starting to think that Acheron might even be someone who is allied with more than one Eon, like the main character or Chaos Undivided. Perhaps Aventurine's comments about it not mattering is actually good advice. Now, whether or not you, or rather the main character, should really trust Acheron is difficult to say. I mean, what bad thing has she really done here? She didn't manage to save Firefly, yes, but there were other people there like Black Swan and the main character who didn't manage to do anything either. She is hiding something from us, true, but so is everyone else in Penacony. She did attack Sam, though one could argue he kinda threatened the group first. Plus, the only person we know she's actually disposed of is Duke Inferno, who was functionally a bad guy anyways. So, despite her actions, it's tough to outright say she's a villain at this point and untrustworthy. Does she have ulterior or secret motives? Sure, but again, that applies to everyone we've met in Penacony. That said, I have this really weird feeling that Sam didn't attack us because he wanted to get rid of us. I think he attacked us to separate us from Acheron or maybe Black Swan. Given the main character is a key part of Elio's script, it's difficult to imagine that any of them would outright try to kill us. So perhaps he was actually trying to save us, kinda like in the movie Wanted with the bullet curving stuff, where the target the main character was pursuing turned out to be trying to save him. This again makes both Acheron and Black Swan suspicious, but we already know what Black Swan wants, but still not know what Acheron wants. But this is some 4D level chess that is way above my theory guessing abilities. In any case, I do hope that Acheron doesn't turn out to be a villain, but if she does, it's not stopping me from summoning for her, especially since I'm a sucker for any Raiden Mei or Raiden Shogun equivalent. Who do you think Acheron really is? Let me know in the comments if you have any interesting ideas. If you had fun watching this video, do consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and as usual, have a nice day.